Well, hello and welcome to Wayports Racing League Season 3 in Live for Speed Round 5 at Blackwood GP in Division 1. I'm Peter Butcher and I'm joined in the commentary box by Travis Mellinger. Hi Travis.
Hello Pete, how are you today?
I'm really good. Looking forward to the round that will set us halfway through the championship at the end. The third season of Wayports Racing League is well and truly underway. And we have some interesting things in store today. We're back at Blackwood, one of the most popular venues in Wayports Racing League. And we are at the Blackwood GP configuration, which is pretty much a classic now. We've got some exciting racing coming up. It's going to be a longer format. We have 28 laps of this one today, around the 3.3 kilometre, 2.1 mile Blackwood GP track. An hour of qualification has been underway, and we have a 28 lap race at 2:05 UTC. So, without any further ado, Travis, I think we need to take a look at the track and see what's cooking.
I agree. We'll have a look. Drivers, I expect to get around here pretty easily. As you said, Blackwood is a classic. It is the staple of Live for Speed, the track everybody started on. Most people probably started going around in these cars. So I was watching qualifying before we brought up the stream. It seemed like everybody was getting around reasonably well. We don't have the pictures yet. There we go. Pictures coming up now. We can see Mariano's at the top of the list on a 1:35.73. Andy, who we did not believe would be here today, or had said when we talked to him last week, would be joining on a keyboard if he did make it, appears to be there on a wheel. So he's managed to sort that out. Not too far behind Mariano, about a second back. In second, and then Valentina, the other McLean library card, in the library car, my apologies, in third position. Timer at the top, not quite right. We'll sort that out. There should be about 5 or 10 minutes left in qualifying, Pete. We'll take a look at that and see what's going on there.
5 minutes should
about
be
5 minutes left for these drivers to set some laps as we follow Wellington around now.
Yeah, worth noting that the Bank of Wayports team has changed name to Quantum for this round. So no Bank of Wayports is no more, which means Wellington and his teammate Eduardo will be driving for the new Quantum outfit. Let's see how the last 4 rounds have affected the teams and drivers championship. We'll start off with the all-important drivers championship, because it is Mariano for the McLean Library leading the way on 86 points. We've got Andy for Vertex in second. He is here this week. He said he might not be, but we've noticed him join, so hopefully he'll be able to compete. Santiago, his teammate, a very, very great effort last week, winning. He is in P3 in the championship, only a handful of points now off of the top 2, so that could potentially be a story for the rest of the season. Ian for Lilium is P4. Not sure if Ian is here today. No, he is on the server. He has been setting lap times, so that's good. Wellington for Bank of Wayports, now Quantum in P5. Valentina for McLean Library in P6. Currently third in this qualifying session, actually. Arthur for Atrium, P7. Eduardo for Quantum, P8. And Alex for Step Up, down in P9. Over in the Teams Championship, it is a similar story up the top as we've seen in the previous rounds. It is Vertex leading the way now by a decent margin over the McLean Library. Bank of Wayports, currently P3. Obviously, that will change to Quantum after today as their drivers set points for that new team. Lilium, P4. Atrium, P5. And Step Up down in P6. Travis, has anything changed in the couple of minutes we were doing that?
No, nothing has changed. I wanted to mention, since we've come off the standings, that the story today is Santiago is absent. Santiago, we expected to see today, heard before the event started that he is having trouble with his internet connection. So hopefully he can get that sorted out in the next few minutes and make the start. But right now, off the back of his win last week and a great result for his team, looking like it might be a little rough for them today. Only one driver from the Vertex team, that's Andy, in what we believe is not an ideal situation set up for him. We know that he is away from his usual spot where he drives and absent a teammate. So a lot of work for Andy to do today. Still got our fingers crossed that Santiago will be able to join. But we'll see what develops. Should be a couple minutes left in qualifying. I've got Elmo in my ear and seen messages going around the server. They're working out how they will sort out the last few minutes of qualifying, but should have it wrapped up pretty soon, and then off to the race.
Yeah, we've got 4 minutes left. They're going to manually stop the qualifying session at the hour. Just some timing glitches going on. But yeah, back to the action. No ballast being run on the top two cars this week, and that is why there is a 1.2 second gap between Mariano and Andy, and then a nearly 2 second gap from Mariano to his teammate Valentina. The top two deciding not to run any ballast this week. And as you can see there, Mariano, who currently has pole position, has no passengers in his car this week, which is going to make them a lot faster than they were 7 days ago.
Yeah, Pete, as you were saying that, Andy dropped connection. He's rejoined, so don't know if he's having trouble with his internet connection or if that was just an unfortunately timed computer crash. He's coming back on track now. He'll certainly be hoping that doesn't happen again, whatever it was. Being the sole representative of the Vertex team today, we'll keep an eye on him.
Yeah, it could
as
be
Mariano
big
crosses the line.
Could be big for the championship if neither Vertex car scores any points. So we need to hope that Andy can stay connected to the server. We believe he's not at home this week, and you know how sometimes you can have flaky internet where you are. But that's one of the challenges of sim racing, and one of the challenges of such an intense series, as we see Andy rolling it in the background. He's completely pitched that car over on its roof. We're going to see that today, I'm sure, from one or two drivers. It's just one of the characteristics of this track, Travis.
Yeah, I believe you're right. That huge sausage curve there is one of the more dangerous ones in Live for Speed, which is saying something, because we have watched some cars go sailing over some rather aggressive curbs in the circuits that we visited in this series. That curb, interestingly, was not there when you or I started driving in Live for Speed. The track now is a little bit different than it was what was the previous version? 0.5? I think 0.5X or 0.5Y was when I started playing Live for Speed years ago, and the track was a little bit different. Didn't have the huge sausage curves that you see in the background behind Mariano there, and then in the chicane where we saw Andy go off earlier. So they'll have to watch out for those today. They are dangerous. They will jump out and flip your car. The drivers who are cautious, as we see, nearly turn it around backward there, manages to collect it and set off up the hill. Yeah, the drivers who are cautious and stay off those curbs, I think, will be the more successful today.
Yep, certainly will. We have around about less than 2 minutes left in this session, and after that, we'll be able to determine the starting order for our 28-lap race. And yeah, we just hope really that Andy's connection is going to hold up for this one, so that he can battle with Mariano, because at the moment it does look like Mariano is on some very strong pace. This is not the best qualifying session approach for Andy. He's not had the chance to settle into this session really, and yet Mariano is just cruising away in the lead just now. 30 seconds left to go in the session, Travis.
Yeah, I was waiting for the call in my ear, and then it happened just as you were speaking a moment ago. Mariano came out of the pits, and I'm watching him go around, and I didn't think that he had come out in time to set another lap. I suppose he's just staying warm, staying sharp, feeling the car out, using all the time to make sure that he is prepared for the race. But he is not going to come around in time to start another lap. We'll look around for other cars who will be crossing the line to finish their laps. Mariano, not one of them, though we're looking at him again now.
So yeah, that is it. That is qualifying. When the drivers cross the line now, they will set their final time of the session if they're on a lap. Mariano's aborted his run. Is anyone else
Ian,
on a lap?
Yeah, I'm looking at Ian. Ian is coming through the back of the circuit now. He's coming down to the final corners. There we go. We can see him coming down the hill. Little off the racing line as he throws the anchor over wide into the corner, though he gets it down to the apex fairly late. He'll come around over the curb, jump on the binders for the final corner, try to keep it off the grass on the outside. It's really easy to run wide here because it's a little bit off camber and kind of an oddly contoured corner. He'll come up the hill and over the line, and I believe he is our last competitor who will set a lap as he comes across now.
Yeah, he is. That is everybody. So yeah, let's run down the order. We have 7 drivers. Hopefully, like as I mentioned, I hope that Andy can sort out whatever connection problem he has. But it will be Mariano who starts on pole position, a full second and a bit ahead of Andy. Valentina for McLean Library P3, a good starting position for her with Santiago absent. Then we've got Wellington for Quantum in P4, Ian for Lilium P5, Eduardo for Quantum P6, and Alex for Step Up will start on the final row of the grid on his own in P7 in just a few moments' time. Yes, let's just quickly refresh ourselves with what's going to go on in the actual race itself. We have a 28-lap race kicking off in around about, well, in a couple of minutes' time. We might start slightly earlier because everybody has finished their qualifying session. But yeah, Blackwood GP, 9 corners. It's an absolute classic in sim racing. It's been around since the very, very early 2000s in one shape or another, as Travis mentioned earlier during the qualifying session. It's gone through various guises, this track. Immensely popular with drivers in sim racing, and it's become somewhat of a classic and a favourite among the drivers in Wayports. We are ready to go here. We should see the green flag drop any minute now, and we will be racing for round number 5. Here we go, Travis. The drivers are on the grid.
I've got eyes on Mariano on the front. He was clearly quicker in qualifying. He will want to take his pole position into a clear lead into the first corner and then set off in pursuit of a winning drive. The green light's up. Mariano takes off in the lead. He's got Andy sliding in behind him between the 2 McLean Library cars. That's Valentina in third. Andy's going to have a look to the outside over the curbs here. He's got a run on the outside. This will be a difficult pass, but he's going to stick it out there on the brakes a little bit early. Tries to do the over-under move. He's got the inside coming into the chicane. He'll need to be really cautious over the curbs. He stays nice and wide of that sausage curb. Easily clear Mariano off into the lead, down this very long back straightaway with a clear margin over Mariano.
Yeah,
a mighty start from Andy. Well done to him.
Really nice start. One of the cleanest starts we've seen in Wayports Racing League. Full stop, actually. Mariano is pretty close to his teammate Valentina, and in turn, it looks like Eduardo's had a great start again. Eduardo, once again proving that he is improving in this series, and he's all the way up with the McLean Library guys and girls at this point. Let's see, a bit wide there from Eduardo. Valentina also taking a bit of an interesting line through the third corner.
A really impressive start by Andy. He's maintained this gap through turns 4, 5, 6, coming down to turn 6 right now. I don't know whether to say that was an incredible start by Andy. It was certainly a strong start. If that was an incredible start by Andy or a conservative start by Mariano, but Andy, with a clear gap coming into the final corner, sets off up the hill. As we look back to Eduardo, and I believe that's Ian trailing him. Ian a little bit squirrely coming out of the corner, trying to stay wide of that curb, but manages to keep the power down. He'll set off in pursuit of Eduardo, but up ahead, Andy, a full second clear of Mariano on this first lap. Great start by him. This is what he needs today. He is down a teammate. Santiago was not able to join before the green lights went on. He needs to win this race to preserve as much of the championship lead as possible and hope for some carnage behind him from Mariano and Valentina. As Alex goes wide and into the tires there. Andy a little bit ragged through the chicane. Mariano's got a bit of a run. Won't have quite enough slipstream to make a run into the following corners. We look back to Ian and Eduardo side by side coming down the back straight. Pete, lots of excitement early on here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's a couple of drivers who are very similar to each other up and down the field, which means we get battles like this straight away. Ian and Eduardo, they've been there or thereabouts around the same pace for the last 10 races or so. And yeah, at the moment, it looks like Eduardo has overcome the Lilium car. So that new Quantum livery, which I'm quite a fan of, to be honest, the new Quantum team replacing Bank of Wayports. Yeah, he's up into P4.
He is. Close racing all the way down the field. Andy and Mariano much closer in the lead, with Eduardo and Ian close together behind them. Mariano now right on Andy's tail coming through this corner. Runs a little bit wide to carry a bit more speed. He'll want to be wide on the entry to this corner. Andy gets a little bit wrong, loses the rear end of the car. Mariano nice and smooth right up over the curb. Very, very nice arc through the corner. And now he'll have a good run up and then down the hill here. As we hear in my ear that Eduardo's rolled it somewhere on the circuit. It looks like it was coming around turn 6 or 7, around the back of the circuit. Mariano's got to run. He's going to look to the outside of this corner, try to pull the same move that Andy did on him at the start. He's a nose ahead through the first corner, but Andy still has the line in the chicane. They're going to go side by side. Pete, this could end in tears.
These guys are good. They've got used to racing like this. These two. That was a great little battle there. Mariano, he doesn't need to rush this. He has a lot of time in this race to pick off Andy, but that was a great effort. As with Pete, Alex sets a personal best. Good improvement from him.
Yes, it is. Looking back down the order, Valentina not too far behind. I would say she's keeping pace with the leaders, 2.5 seconds back of Andy. Ian is now well clear of Eduardo, who rolled the car while the two of them were battling on the previous lap. Wellington back in 5th. Alex promoted to 6th position on the back of Eduardo rolling the car, though I expect that Eduardo will pretty easily catch Alex bar any further mistakes. Car's now getting a little bit more spread out, but we'll keep following this lead battle to see if Andy can keep Mariano behind him, or conversely, whether Mariano can find his way past and then set off in pursuit of a win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we weren't expecting Andy to be here. We were expecting Santiago. So this is a bit of a change of what we expected to happen here today. Mariano, yeah, he's going to be very glad, obviously, that he has a battle for this race. But I bet there's a little bit of sweat growing on his brow because Andy has turned up. He's had a terrible preparation for this qualifying session because of his, dropped out halfway through, and he's currently leading by, well, there's not a lot of a gap, but it doesn't matter at the end if you can keep it up. Mariano's got a good exit. This could be a change for position on the back straight, and he's doing a bit of weaving to defend. He's going very defensive. Needs to be careful not to make contact down this long straight. But Mariano has managed to get past for now, but we know how often these two like to change position during a race, Travis.
Yeah, I'm keen to learn when we get to interviews as Andy continues to weave, though he's now behind Mariano. I'm keen to learn. Oh, he's late on the brakes. He's going to make a lunge down the inside. Mariano chooses to stay wide. Andy has to keep it tight. He can't carry his own speed there. Wow, that was a great move by Andy. I think he spooked Mariano, and Mariano forced Mariano to make the choice. Did he want to stay on the road, or did he want to have a collision? Andy takes the position back, though he's a little bit ragged through this sequence of corners. Mariano should have a run up and then down the hill here. Whether he chooses to make a lunge remains to be seen. I'm keen to learn from Andy if he's on a wheel, if he took it with him wherever he's gone away from home, or if he's on a controller, or if he was able to get back home. We don't know. We will have to find out.
Yeah, we'll find out at the end.
As these two continue to battle through the final corner, Andy gets it a little bit wrong, but he puts it's been so fun to watch these guys learn these cars. They have figured out. You could see it there as Andy got it a bit wrong going into the final corner. The back end of the car wanted to get away, but he put the power down and dragged the car up the hill, and he's able to keep Mariano behind him.
Yeah, for now, as you can see, these two side by side again, and Mariano's got ahead, in fact. So that was a great move by him as they head into the chicane on lap number 5. And Andy needs to get him back. Andy's got to try and tighten up his lines and focus on the back of Mariano. We're hearing, actually, that Andy's setup has a longer top gear. So that's going to help him down the straight.
Yeah, it'll help him a little bit. He'll be missing a bit of the torque, but when we heard that in our ears, I wonder, I'm not sure if that means that he has a longer gear and is able to go faster, or if he has a longer gear and is avoiding the rev limiter. We'll have to jump on board with Mariano here pretty soon and see if he's in the very top end of what the engine is willing to give him.
Yeah, you could see in the last 100 meters or so that Andy was gaining because Mariano's car was bouncing on the red line. So we'll go on board with Mariano at the end of the straight on the next lap and just see that for ourselves. But you could hear that Andy had plenty of revs left. So if Andy gets a good exit out of the chicane each lap, he will gain free time on Mariano. And I have to say, it's interesting. These two running different setups for it can't be, possibly the first time. I mean, they normally use very similar or the same setups for these races. So are they starting to get a bit more competitive with each other, Travis?
Yeah, it sounds like they might be. I kind of, excuse me, Pete. Sorry about that. I kind of wonder if perhaps Mariano had a different set for qualifying that got him more pull out of the corner, and he was willing to give some top speed to the end of that straightaway just to get, more torque, more drive out of the corners, and then forgot to switch to a race setup. That's another question we can ask at the end. As Mariano a little bit wide, Andy kind of follows him there. Andy was looking for a good line through the chicane. That was a really nice line through the chicane. Missed the apex in the middle just slightly, but had a nice smooth run. Now we'll find out just how early Andy is into the rev limiter and how much Mariano is into the rev limiter and how much Andy is able to catch him.
Look at this. He's going to be on the rev limiter before the bridge. Pretty much. That's it.
Yeah, that's 500 meters before the corner. That's he's missing a lot of top speed, Pete.
Yeah, and you can see there, Andy didn't have the best exit from the chicane, but the gap at the next corner is a lot smaller. So throughout this race, Andy's going to be gaining some time there. With the shorter gear ratios, though, Mariano could be doing pretty well out of the chicane and into these twisty corners. It has to be said. Andy's faster in one place on the lap, Mariano's faster in the other. It will balance itself out, of course, but so far Mariano is making that setup work for him.
Yep, absolutely. Pete, I suggest now that we should put on our tinfoil hats. Do you suppose a fourth possibility that Mariano has run a shorter gear to keep it more competitive so that the racing is tighter at the front? We've seen this before where they shuffled the ballast around and moved passengers. Is there some subterfuge in play today?
I don't think so. They've taken the passengers out. It's gloves off now. They want the fastest car they've got. I think if Mariano wanted to slow his car down, he could do other things other than that. Because remember, with that higher gear, he's going to need more fuel for this race too.
Pete, I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to double down and commit to my suggestion here because I think Mariano is listening to the stream as they're driving around. As soon as I said that, there was a smiley face in chat.
Okay.
So we'll ask him about it at the end of the race. I'm willing to look silly for this. I don't mind it, but I think there's more going on here. As we were joking there, Pete, Eduardo lost connection. He had fallen to the back behind Alex after he rolled the car a few laps ago and has now dropped. He's coming back on now and has left the pits, but he will be laps behind Alex in 6th place. Unfortunate for him.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter in terms of the championship. He just needs to finish to score points. Of course, it sucks for this particular race, but it's not the end of the world for Eduardo. It's a shame. He was running in a good position early on. Mariano goes quite wide into turn 8 there.
Yeah, he'll need we've talked about this before in earlier events where the driver in the front needs to be, kind of balance the pace in the front with. This is not, I wouldn't call this a healthy lead, but it's a pretty comfortable margin. He needs to balance the pace with the consistency, and it looks like he's still pushing pretty hard to make sure that Andy stays behind him and just making small mistakes here and there. He was wide into the final sequence of corners, though he looks good into turn 1 here now. Nice smooth line out to the curb. He'll want to be cautious through the chicane. He can easily lose time by going over those big sausage curbs and bouncing the car. He's well clear of the curbs there. Should have a nice run, though. I think with a nice run out of that corner, all that means is he's going to have even more of this straightaway bouncing off the rev limiter. Though I think, we've got a 2-second gap now to Andy. He's still, even with a compromised setup, he's still slightly gaining time on Andy. Andy needs to find a little bit more pace.
Andy's weaving. I don't think that's down to him necessarily doing that on purpose. I think that's an indicator that he could potentially be using a gamepad.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And we know he's been on a wheel before. If he's only just turned up in a gamepad with, minimal practice or even like as much practice as he was able to get in the qualifying session, still awfully impressive. We're on board with him now. This is a good shot over his shoulder. With the recent network improvements, the packet rate improvements in the game, it's kind of harder to see the or sorry, it's a little bit easier to see or to guess the driver's inputs. I would say he's pretty smooth on his inputs on the wheel, so it could be a wheel. If he's on a gamepad, then he's one of the better gamepad drivers, because he, like, I don't see like the kind of jerky movements that that I would expect out of somebody, driving on a thumbstick for the first time. It looks like he's pretty smooth.
Yeah, Andy was using a gamepad early on in the Wayports series, season 1, I think. Yeah, again, it's impressive. Continuing on the subject of controllers, a couple of the drivers have upgraded to wheels. Wellington and Eduardo now using Logitech G29s for the Quantum team. So those guys learning those controls.
Heard in our ears that Wellington had just gotten by Ian, and now we're looking back and we can see Wellington right there in front of Ian, got him in the first corner and was clear of him through the chicane. Now Wellington off in fourth in pursuit of Valentina. Ian was wide into the first corner. Tires in the front of the car a little bit hotter, so it seems like he may have been abusing them a little bit and then made a mistake into the first corner to heat it up even more. He is now the pursuer, will be looking to gain fourth position back and gain valuable points for the Lillian team.
Yeah, this is an impressive drive from Wellington, especially as he's getting used to a brand new wheel and pedal setup, passing a driver who last season, when Ian was driving for Bundles, was a lot higher up in the championship at this stage than Wellington. So, yeah, this is good stuff from Wellington. As you can see, that gap continues to grow. So Ian's struggling, and he's on a gamepad. You can tell with those inputs.
Yep, yeah, you can pretty easily. There you can see the quick kind of jerky movements. Yeah. Turn into the corner, correct. Turn in, correct. There are some people. Andy's clearly one of them. If he's on a gamepad today, you mentioned that he was on a gamepad early in the season before he got a wheel. Some people are good at it. They have the precise inputs with their thumbs. I do not. I am not very good at it. I do not have the kind of fluidity or sensitivity required in my thumb to make those. Yeah, thank you. I heard in my ear dexterity. The dexterity to the finesse. Everyone's shouting words at me now that I can use to better describe what I'm trying to explain here. Yeah, I can do a wheel, but I don't have the fine control on a thumbstick. So, but a lot of respect to these guys who are able to make those really precise inputs and make it look easy.
Yeah, your meat hands just aren't up for the job, Travis.
No,
Valentina, she's dropping back a little bit, and more importantly, is holding that gap to Wellington. So if she keeps this up, it could be a double podium then for McLean Library. I'd never like speaking too soon, of course. I'm very used to commentary curses, but so far so good for the McLean Library this race.
Yeah, she was kind of keeping pace with them. We didn't see or hear anything, so I wonder if she had a brief off-track excursion. But as you said, still running back there in third. The pictures moved to her right as she was coming through that sequence of corners 4 and 5, and she was really smooth through there. So she's got I think she's got the circuit pretty well figured out. She looks really nice through the final corner here. Kind of a tight line, but then a nice run up the hill, next to that curb, and then over the start-finish line. Strong performance from her, as you said, on for a podium, a double podium with her teammate Mariano, who is now 3 seconds clear of Andy in the lead, ever so slightly pulling away.
Yeah, I'm going to go away and work out how many times we've had Blackwood GP or a variant of it in Wayports. It feels like it's easily the most visited track. It's around about twice a season, one in the forward direction and one in the reverse direction. And of course, we had the pre-season tests at Blackwood too. So yeah, this should be the track that all of the drivers have the most experience at, you'd have to say, especially race experience.
Yep, I agree. I think you're right. As we look ahead to Mariano now, negotiating back markers, he still stays well wide of Alex. I know they intended to have a friendly discussion after the last event. Alex struggled a little bit controlling the car and trying to avoid the front runners as, oh no, Andy's off in the grass there. I don't know if he was spooked by Alex, though he's got plenty of space before he even catches Alex. I think he just made a mistake and it was off into the tire barrier there. now has more work to do. He was slowly losing ground to Mariano. That will have cost him a couple more seconds.
Oh, and he's gone
And he's going to
very
duck
late
into the
decision.
pits.
Very late decision to come in the pits. Almost too late, but there we go. He's in the pit lane. This is, of course, the mandatory pit stop that all of the drivers have to make in Wayports Racing League. They don't have to do any work on the car. They just have to stop in the box and drive away. Let's see. Andy normally takes a little splash of fuel. He's taking some again. 18% fuel. So that's quite a lot. That's about 5 seconds that took. So that's one of the longest stops we've seen from Andy. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how long Mariano chooses to stop for, as Valentina sweeps past to make it a temporary McLean Library 1-2.
Yeah, that felt like Andy was stopped for an eternity, taking on fuel there. Though he made the late call, as you said, to dive into the pits. He was awfully quick in, though. He was on the binders, slowed the car down to the pit lane speed limit right at the line, and then he was quick into and out of the box. So I think he'll be a little frustrated that he had lost a couple seconds on that lap coming around to his pit stop. But he did the job in and out of the pits. I think he still has to cross his fingers for a mistake from Mariano, but he's done his job in the first half of his race, or the first third of his race, I suppose. It was a pretty early pit stop. Now he needs to put the hammer down, put in consistent laps, and reel Mariano in.
Yeah, I do wonder whether it was the sight of the back marker that Andy just thought, well, if I get it out of the way, I delay that potential problem. If he gets his pit stop out of the way early, he doesn't have to catch up to the back marker as soon. But there we go. Next, it will be Valentina who will have to deal with the back marker of Alex, but not for a wee while. There's a lot of gap between them at the moment, and Andy's closing up on Valentina.
He is. I think that was. I'm inclined to say that was a wise call from him to just avoid the back marker, because I know Alex is pretty new, gaining experience. They've had some comings together in earlier events, so don't take any risks. He had already gone off and lost a little bit of time, so might as well just get the pit stop out of the way, and then focus on his race without having to worry about getting by a back marker. Though now, what he's done is put himself behind a car that he is actually racing. I don't expect he'll have too much trouble getting past Valentina. I'm going to guess, well, we should follow her on board and see if she's running the same setup as Mariano. She may have the same problem coming under the bridge getting in the rev limiter. We can listen and look and watch Andy to see if she's catching up.
I think Valentina's going to run out of revs as well. You're right. Yep. Almost on the rev limiter, 8,000 revs, and there's a good 300 meters to go. So, yeah, good call.
Yep, so that will... Oh, yeah, now we're back on Andy. Great timing on that shot. Andy caught up a ton, 100 meters in that corner, and Valentina got a little bit wrong coming through the corner. Now defending. Took an early entry and on the brakes into that corner, trying to keep Andy behind. Looks like she's really struggling to control the car. They can be a little bit tricky on the brakes. Andy's right on her bumper now. He could make a lunge here, but he's patient. Smart by him. Takes the wide entry into the corner. It's a little bit too wide. Valentina really struggling with the rear of the car. These cars can be kind of tricky. When the weight moves around, all of the weight in the car is at the front. All the grip is on those front tires, and the rear really wants to take off. You can see her put down some rubber with the front tires, trying to drag the car up the hill, as these two are going to be racing past the back marker. Alex dutifully and politely out of the way, nice. But this gives Andy a run. And it looks like Andy will go through pretty easily. Valentina on the brakes early. Andy on the brakes late, keeps it nice and tight. Trail brakes down to the apex, has a nice clean line through the chicane right up to the sausage curb in the middle of the corner, and then on the way out, done and dusted. He made it look easy, and now he is off after Mariano. 27 seconds clear. He's got a lot of work to do, but he looks pretty good right now. He has back markers behind him. He's got a pit stop in the past. All he has to do is drive quick and consistent laps. Not out of the realm of possibility yet.
Absolutely not. And we're at that stage of the race now where we need to start comparing the lap times of Mariano and Andy. There is a 27.5 second gap, which is easily enough time for Mariano to get in the pit lane and get back out again. And as I said that, here he comes. We won't have to worry about those gaps for much longer. We are going to find out what is going on.
Yeah, so Andy was awfully quick into pit lane. He used a bit more of the road on the way in. Mariano still pretty quick down the lane, quick into the box. That was a nice fast stop. He is taking fuel, so still standing still. Now he is off. Andy coming through the final sequence of corners now. Mariano into the fast lane, coming up to the pit exit line. He will be off the limiter. Well, no limiter in these cars, but he will be up through the gears, away from his self-imposed limit. Andy just now coming over the start-finish line. Mariano is going to be easily clear of Andy as he comes out of this pit lane exit and into the first corner. I would say that's probably a 10-second gap, Pete. He's got a healthy lead over Andy with half of this race gone.
Yeah, you could see that shot there as Mariano left the pits, and he was some way behind. So there you are at the next sector time, which is halfway down the back straight. We will get an update on that gap to tell you exactly how much time Andy needs to make up. Similar length pit stops, but ultimately it's Mariano who has mastered the strategy and has, at the moment, the pace over the Vertex team. Andy, the sole driver for that team today. And there we are, 7.4 seconds. That's a lot of time to make up in the laps that we have left.
It really is. Not impossible. These drivers are not professionals. Well, neither are we, for that matter. But they do make small mistakes here and there. We've seen we've seen the mistakes kind of add up in earlier events. We've also seen the kind of the moments or the minutes of clarity from some drivers before, where they're able to really focus and put in consistent laps. So it's possible Mariano makes a mistake. It's possible Andy Andy finds something. He's able to really dial it in and close that gap. A long way to go yet, only halfway through this race. So we'll follow Andy and see if he can do it. As we look at Ian now, a little bit wide through this corner. He's going to go off in the grass and into the beach, pulls it back on the road.
Yeah, Ian's struggling with those tyres again. It's something we've said quite often, as you can see the amount of lock that he's having to put on that car as Valentina hits the lane. Let's see, bit deep into a pit box there, but should be fine. Only fuel going in, quite a long stop, it has to be said, and that allows Wellington back through.
Yeah, it'll be close between these two now. Wellington will have it'll be a little bit. Oh no! Looks like Valentina got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane just as she was coming out. She gets a friendly message from Andy in chat. We can't see those on stream, but he immediately noticed it. I'll say that. Yeah. So I'm not familiar with the rules. If the rules imposed by the game are the rules that the drivers abide. If that sticks, then she will have to come through pit lane to serve that penalty, and that will leave Wellington I'm very clever. Easily into third position behind Andy. Implications for the championship. Valentina and Mariano were on for a double podium in first and third. That'll cost McLean Library a few points.
Yeah, Wellington's still yet to make his pit stop, but with the extra additional trip down the pit lane for Valentina, the number 125 car, it's going to be Wellington in the lead if he can keep it on the road, which he's currently not doing. He's in the wall between turns 7 and 8, and he's got his main rival Valentina passing him now. There we go.
Yeah, I thought they might come together with the back marker coming through, all three of them there at the same time. But Valentina through, Alex struggling through the corner, but Valentina has passed him pretty easily. Looks like Alex is going to stay to the inside of the circuit as Wellington looks like he's diving for the pits, but he's got Alex coming into the pits right in front of him. That's a disaster for Wellington. He tries to do the Sebastian Vettel move and pass in pit lane, though both of them were into the fence and not fully on the road. That's Wellington had it done. That was a disaster for Valentina, and now an even bigger disaster for Wellington. He's got damage he has to repair, or he might want to repair. He has to take on fuel. Valentina will need to come through pit lane to serve a penalty, but she has a very healthy gap over Wellington now. Just like that, the complexion of the race changes, and she's back into the podium positions.
Yeah, Wellington's just cost himself a podium, his first podium potentially of the season, and potentially fourth place as well. Ian's out and through turn 1, and Wellington's only just leaving the pit lane. Fingers crossed no more mishaps for him this race. But there we go, as he leaves the pit lane. yeah, it's going to be P4 or P5 ultimately for Wellington unless Valentina makes an error.
Yeah, it can be really frustrating. How quickly the mistakes can compound and add on time. As you said, he was on for a podium. Now in fifth behind Ian, and probably, judging by where he came out, where we see Ian on the track now, the timing hasn't updated yet, but he'll be 25 seconds clear. Now I see it. He's 22 seconds back of Ian. He'll be sick. He was on for a pretty good finish. Looked like it could have been a podium, and it's all gone wrong for him. So now he will have to hope for mistakes ahead of him, for Valentina to go off again, perhaps make a mistake on her penalty as she's coming into pit lane now. We were talking about this just a moment ago. She just misses the barriers on the inside. She's trying to get this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
now
so
she will want to be very cautious to avoid making the same mistake again. That's easy to do. I've done it, and it can be awfully frustrating.
Yeah, Valentina doesn't have to stop in any of the boxes. It's just a penalty. She has to drive into the pit lane and then straight out of the other end without speeding, and it looks like she's managed it. So where she rejoins now will be her track position, only just ahead of Ian. In fact, it's going to be close, actually, as they head down into turn one. Let's see where those two are in relation to one another. Ian's just coming into the corner. Valentina's just leaving. So Valentina does keep that podium position for now, but only just. Ian is behind and, well, I think about to start having his front tyres set on fire.
Yeah, they don't look very good. You can see from his inputs that he's struggling. I don't know. I can ask or I can look in a moment. I don't know if he's on keyboard or controller. It is clearly not a wheel, but he's struggling with the inputs. The front tires are in pretty rough shape. We'll watch him and see if he can keep up with Valentina. But Valentina has been, bar that one mistake in pit lane, she's been a bit more consistent. So I expect she'll drive away from Ian here. But a lot can happen in this series. We've seen plenty of surprising action in the past. Entirely possible it could happen again. She comes through this sequence of corners, looks really smooth. Ian off the pace and struggling. Valentina will just want to be consistent because I think she's got the pace to keep Ian behind her pretty easily, and she can set off in pursuit of securing her double podium with her teammate Mariano.
Yeah, speaking of Mariano, the gap between him and Andy has gone up by 3 seconds since we last talked about that battle. So it's hovering around the 10-second mark, as you can see on the timing tower. But yeah, that's quite a void. Andy's really got to dig deep now in the 10 laps we have left to close that. A second a lap is what he needs on average. That is a tall order for Andy, considering Mariano's not only on pace, he's also got the fastest lap of the race at the moment.
Yeah, Andy's best lap is 4/10 back of Mariano's best. I'll watch Mariano to see how quick this lap is when he comes across the line. That gap is still growing, though. Through the last split, Andy, the gap had grown to 10.3 from about 10 naught. Unless Mariano does another one like he did at Fern Bay a couple weeks ago, where he rolled the car up on his side coming through the final sequence of corners. It looks like he has this in the bag, but stranger things have happened. He needs to focus, stay consistent, but it's looking pretty good for Mariano.
It is indeed. That's the void between P1 and P2. You can just see Andy coming down the hill now, and that gap has visibly opened up as Andy gets on the brakes for turn one. 10.2 seconds now. Andy, this win is slipping away every corner at this rate.
It is, and on the previous lap, they were pretty close to the same lap time. Andy was 0.2 slower, though that wasn't reflected in the gap. It came down ever so slightly, so I'm not sure. I must have missed something there. Mariano coming up on back markers now. Back markers have been a theme, or I should say, the altercations, the incidents with back markers have been a theme in earlier events in this series. So Andy just needs to keep focusing. Mariano needs to carefully negotiate the back markers, but looking awfully good for him.
Yeah, that's Wellington getting out of the way. He goes into the trees, and that's job done for Mariano. Yeah, it's something often reserved for for endurance racing. Sorry, where you have to navigate the traffic. But in Wayports, it's somewhat of a different challenge with drivers of varying abilities and experience driving in the series. So no issue there for Mariano. as he heads up the hill towards the start-finish line to start lap 21 of 28 here at Blackwood GP, round number 5 in Division 1 of Wayports Racing League Season 3. We are getting close to the end, and it looks like it's going to be a happy day for McLean Library.
It really does. Now the field is spread out a little bit. There are a couple things I would like to mention as we switch back to Andy now. Still trying to chase down Mariano. One is that Eduardo, I tabbed through the order to see where everybody is on track, and I've noticed Eduardo is just parked here by the Armco, and he's been here for a while. I don't know if he's spectating from there, if he's decided that it is more prudent for him to just finish the race by being out of the way and then coming across the line at the end. We'll keep an eye on him and see what he does.
Yeah, an unorthodox approach.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. We can ask him when it's over, or we'll see for ourselves as the race comes to a close. And the second thing is we say his name a lot. But we don't talk too much about his work during the broadcast. But Mo, in our ears, telling us what's going on with the race and getting us these great camera shots. There was one early on as we did the sequence of pit stops with Mariano and Andy and had the really wide shot over turn 1. We had a bit of excitement, and I didn't get to mention it then, but Elmo with these great camera shots, giving us great pictures so we can see all of the action. Thanks to him, it makes these events even more exciting and gives us a lot to look at and talk about. He's doing really great work.
.6 seconds the gap. I think this is going to be the talking point to the end now. It's just not Andy's week, is it, Travis? It really isn't. Unfortunately.
No, it's really not. Probably a little bit frustrating for him, but on the other hand, he knew that he was going to be a bit compromised for this event. Might not be at home, not on ideal equipment. So he might very well be happy with a P2 if he is indeed away from home, running on a controller when he's normally on a wheel. With very little practice, I'd say he's done a pretty good job. He's he's preserved as much as he can of his championship lead. No, he might be pretty happy with this.
So yeah, I think Andy, considering he didn't even think he could be here this week. Yeah, you're right. At least if he carries on where he is, be some good points.
Yep, that's my mistake. I misspoke. He's not in the championship lead, but trying to stay close to the championship lead. A lot of the season left. He wants to finish as well as possible, and he's doing okay. I think he's done the best he could have hoped for today, bar a big mistake for Mariano out front.
Let's talk about Ian. He's still in the hunt here. Valentina is only just up the road. There are only 7 seconds between the pair. This position could change. The final position on the podium is not settled at the moment. We could still see a change here. It's pretty certain, unless something catastrophic goes wrong at the front. Mariano will probably take the checkered flag first, followed by Andy. But never say never. I'm more interested at the moment to see what Ian's got left in those tyres and whether he can catch up the second of the 2 McLean Library cars in the dying laps.
Yeah, there's plenty of material left on those tires, but he's working his left front awfully hard. I expect most of that is down to his control scheme. He took a nice line through the corner there, just bumped the tires on the inside, which is what you want to do, though he goes wide on the outside, which is not ideal. His left front tire, it can be okay if the surface of the tire gets hot. Like, it will start to slide and lose grip a little bit. When it starts to really become a problem is when the tire pressure comes up, when the internal temperature of the tire comes up, and we can see looking at the condition of his equipment that he's brought the temperature and the pressure of the air inside the tire a bit above where he would like it to be. So pressure is going to be a bit high. That's going to alter the grip, in addition to the kind of the sliding around, the loss of grip he would get from the high surface temperature. So clearly struggling, and it's unless unless you're experienced and you feel comfortable, backing off in a few places and knowing where you can find additional pace, this problem it's just kind of a negative feedback loop where you're losing pace and you want to push a little bit harder to try to compensate, but it just ends up exacerbating the problem. So he's still not too far behind. He's keeping this gap about even at 7.5, 8 seconds, but he's running out of time. He'll need a mistake from Valentina, and he needs to back off a little bit. Give a bit of a respite to this tire, but it looks like he's struggling. I don't know if it's in the cards, but as you said, not over yet.
No, not over. The gap is ebbing and flowing, but still holding steady around 7 seconds as Andy puts another lap on. Puts a lap on Wellington there. So yeah, Wellington. It's a race that could have been for him. Certainly, probably one of the biggest stories. Actually, he had the podium position in his grasp. An error from Valentina in her pit stop, giving her a drive-through, gave Wellington the perfect opportunity to just do steady laps and potentially take home his first podium, but that error between turns 7 and 8 meant that that was not to be. P5 currently for Wellington.
Yep, really unfortunate for him. He'll be frustrated, but a good learning opportunity. He will remember those things, and I think he will certainly try hard not to repeat them. Now he knows how easily those kind of mistakes can compound.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the more laps you do, the more time you spend in the seat, the more you learn. And Wellington has certainly improved from the days at the beginning of Wayports Racing League Season 1 when putting a lap together was an achievement kind of thing. Now, definitely in the hunt, just needs to tighten up a few things. And Wellington could be a name we see higher up on the board going forward. P3 at one point in this race, looking okay pace-wise. Just needs to tidy up some of those errors.
Yep, I agree. And we've seen, as we watch this series, the drivers gaining experience. We see fewer mistakes. We see them driving around more smoothly. They're more attentive and more aware of the race going on around them. Everyone improving and looking better and better with each event. As we were talking about Wellington, Mariano set the fastest lap of the race and then immediately got messages of praise from Andy. Mariano's best half a second clear of Andy's best and just off his qualification time. He's in the zone in the lead of this race, though he doesn't really have to be. He can afford to back off at this point because he's got nearly a 14-second lead over Andy. But we have also talked about this in the past. When you're in a rhythm, you don't mess with it, and he clearly is. So he'll come through the final sequence of corners and then up the hill to start the 26th lap, just 3 laps away from what appears to be a victory for Mariano.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by the contrasting driving styles between Mariano and Andy. It's a little bit unfair to compare them today, of course. Different approaches, a different race for these two drivers this week. But let's ride on board for Mariano for one lap. We're on lap 26. We've got 3 to go here. And let's watch as he heads up to the braking zone. Really tricky braking zone this because you've got an uphill section where you get on the brakes and then the road levels out. Therefore, the car goes lighter. And if you don't lift off the brakes, you can risk locking up and running wide into turn 1. But no such problems for Mariano. Throws it through this tricky Mickey Mouse styled right, left, right chicane. They have huge sausage curbs to navigate on that corner. And in the XFG, which is, it's not the lightest car, but it is quite top heavy. It's quite easy to roll. We've seen cars doing that. We saw Eduardo do it earlier. And then you've got this massive back straight. So that chicane is incredibly important. You have to get the right exit. You've got to get a smooth and quick exit. As we hear Mariano's engine note hitting the red line very early on the back straight, he really is giving up some time on this back straight. He could be doing even faster lap times if he'd just given his 5th gear a little bit more room to run. Then we've got this second little chicane. It's only 2 apexes, a right and a left, but again, very easy to mess up the second part, and it all comes down to that first part. You've got to get the right line to get the good exit. Coming up to turn 8, this is tricky. Downhill right-hander, slightly off camber on the entry, and a very, very new bumpy surface as you head into the apex. It's quite difficult in this front-wheel drive car to get the nose into the apex there, and Mariano did an okay job of it there. The left-right at the end, the penultimate and final corner of the lap, again, very tricky because the car just wants to push itself into the grass. And that's a lap of Blackwood on board with Mariano. 2 to go for our championship leader. fastest lap, leading by 15 seconds. This is a comfortable day for him.
It really is. He, as you were on board with him, he extended the lead by another second. Andy had he kept it together, but had a bit of an excursion through the chicane. I saw dust come up. I think he went over one of the sausage curbs as you were talking us around the circuit with Mariano. Now 15 and a half seconds. So something else has gone a little bit wrong for Andy. At this point, Andy just trying to preserve that second position. He doesn't have to push because he's got an enormous gap over Valentina in third place. He just wants to make sure that he secures these points, doesn't make any mistakes. It's done for Mariano. He's not going to catch him unless there is an amazing catastrophe. He should be pretty happy with second place at this point.
Yeah, considering, as we mentioned before, that he didn't think he'd even be here, second place ultimately would be pretty good. Valentina, again, consistent, and with the absence of Santiago, which we weren't expecting, it's fair to say, Travis, I think, this will be welcome points for her and the team.
No, we certainly didn't. We talked about him very early on at the end of qualifying. Hoped he would be able to make the start, but is absent. We've heard that he's having trouble with his internet connection. Clearly not able to sort it out before the race began. So Andy, the sole representative for the Vertex team today, running a race to salvage as many points as he possibly could. Done a good job in second place, but he will rue not having his teammate here today, especially on the back of Santiago's performance last week. A P1 around the Aston Club circuit, the Aston Cadet circuit, by mistake. I think he would have been pretty strong here today, feeling good on the back of that victory, but not meant to be. These kind of things happen in sim racing. The internet is, I think we call it, we would consider an internet connection a mechanical portion of the car in a racing simulator, and today it let him down. But hopefully they'll bounce back next week. We'll see another strong performance of Santiago when he returns.
Yeah, I think it's worth on this final lap to talk about Santiago. He had a win last week, of course, and it would have been nice to see that momentum carry on this week. He's at the mercy of his internet connection, unfortunately, as we see Mariano again bouncing off the red line, giving up loads of fuel, loads of virtual fuel, and he's got two back markers in front of him on the final lap. That's always an uncomfortable situation. Alex there yielding to Ian. Mariano backs right off. He doesn't want to get caught up in this on the last lap. He's got Alex in front, trying to find his way around. He finally moves out of the way, and Mariano slips through. But it doesn't matter. He's got a huge gap to Andy, so he just needs to take it easy through the final two corners, and that will be his race. Just Ian to navigate, but I think he'll let Ian get through to finish his race, and well, Ian will get another lap to complete, and will be our final car. But here we go. Mariano flashing his headlights over the crest, taking a well-deserved victory in round number 5 of Wayports Racing League Season 3. It's going to be a bit of a wait for Andy, unfortunately, today. 17 seconds in the back, and here he comes over the start-finish line. It's Andy. Unexpected to see him here this week, but it's great. 15 seconds in the end off of him, and yeah, we have Wellington crossing the line, one lap down in the end. What could have been for him? Travis, quite a straightforward race in the end for Mariano, but a good battle at the beginning with Andy, it has to be said.
It was, yeah. A lot of really exciting racing early on the first couple laps. The two of them dicing together and trading positions, running side by side through the chicane on one lap, giving each other enough room and plenty of respect. So we got to see some exciting racing there. Andy, yeah, we didn't expect him to even turn up, or if he did, then he would be on unfamiliar equipment. But still, a great drive by him to salvage some points. Wellington, as you mentioned, he'll be frustrated because I think he had, I don't know if it was a sure podium, but he certainly had a strong chance at a podium, and then gave it away on a couple of mistakes. As we watch Valentina, or I'm watching Valentina, waiting for her to come across the line right now. She's through the final corner and up and over the curb, through this right-hand bend, up the hill, and now coming over the crest into view to cross the finish line in the third. She will be happy with that. Mariano will be happy with that. First and third podium positions for the McLean Library. A really good points haul for them. Taking a big chunk out of Vertex's championship, team's championship lead.
Yeah, and there we have it. I don't know whether Eduardo was able to finish. I don't think so. I think that is that. Yeah, so let's get the final full classification of the results of that one. 28 laps of Blackwood GP completed, and it was Mariano for McLean Library who won in 45 minutes and 27 seconds with the fastest lap of 1:35.6, which was very close, 2/10 off his pole time. Different race trim, different setup, different fuel, different approach, but still with the pace. Andy, 14.9 seconds off the lead in P2. Valentina picks up another podium for her collection, a bronze medal in this case in P3. Ian, only in the end a handful of seconds off of the podium, just needs to sort out that input in his front, his steering inputs, make them a bit smoother, and he will be up with those top guys for sure. Wellington, that's the story of my day. I think a podium kind of thrown away in the end for him. I think it could have been on. He had the pace, certainly, just a few too many mistakes. Alex finishes in P6. I think that's his highest finish in the series. 3 laps off the lead, and Eduardo with that retirement down in P7. Travis, give me your thoughts before we head to the interviews.
A dominant performance by Mariano. Looked like it would be pretty close in the opening laps. Mariano and Andy dicing for position and trading the lead. I think a bit of a mistake early on from Andy. He made that late lunge to the pits after he had a bit of an off and then got caught behind the back marker, or knew he was going to have to go through the back marker, and then early pit stop, and then as soon as Mariano had a healthy lead, he was off to keep it. Steadily gained on Andy the entire race. So dominant drive by him. Andy should be pretty pleased. Unfamiliar equipment. Didn't think he would be here this week, but he did make it. Took second place to salvage some points. And then Valentina, McLean Library, great performance by the two of them today, pouncing on this opportunity, taking valuable points off the Vertex team. As the drivers were coming into the first corner to park after the end of this race, I saw an interesting message from Andy where he said no phone, so he won't be able to join interviews. So a bit of a mystery now exactly what his setup is. I don't know if that means his phone has died and he can't join interviews. I don't know that he would join interviews in the Wayports application from his phone anyway. So we'll have to find out more, and maybe we can talk about it next week. Interesting situation for Andy, which I expect should make him all the more pleased that he was able to finish so well today.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break here, but don't go anywhere because we're going to be getting some interviews for you. Hopefully, we can speak to as many drivers as possible. Don't go anywhere. Hello and welcome back to coverage of Wayports Racing League Season 3, Round 5 from Blackwood GP for Division 1 of the Championship. We've just had the 28-lap race around Blackwood for Round 5, and these were the race results. We had Mariano taking a well-deserved victory there in 45 minutes ahead of Andy by 15 seconds today. We don't have Andy for an interview, but we will have our winner. We'll have third-place driver Valentina, and a little quick chat with Ian as well for Lilium. So, Travis, let's talk to Mariano first. Mariano, welcome to the booth. What do you make of that? So, a pretty straightforward victory in the end, but a good fight at the beginning with Andy.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, credit to Andy for not only showing up. He was traveling this weekend and coming in with the keyboard, and at that pace, I was really impressed. And so he was able to match my pace for a minute there. Obviously, I had an edge, but I had to keep pushing. So it probably looked like a relaxed race, but I was pushing the whole time on the edge of a mistake because I knew, what if there's contact with a back marker, then I'm in trouble. So I had to keep pushing it.
Yeah, we heard there that Andy did in fact take his wheel with him wherever he was going. So Not the best preparation for this round. Obviously, it's not easy competing away from home, but good effort for Andy for actually attending and able to get on the grid. So he put up a good fight. We were quite surprised after the first few laps. I bet you were taken aback a little bit by that.
Yeah, but it was great. I had a comfortable lead, and before in the first 5 laps when I was chasing him, I knew that I had to do my thing, and it's a long race, and so if you have the pace, there's no need to rush it. And you probably saw me backing out of a corner there in the chicane. That was exactly because of that reason. But yeah, in the end, I was able to take it.
Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, this is really good for your championship, and it's good for McLean Library too. I think you'll probably steal back the lead in the teams championship today, with the absence of Santiago, unfortunately, from this round with internet connection issues. Hopefully, he sorts that out. But yeah, McLean Library. Do you want to talk us through a bit about that and also the introduction of a new team, Quantum? Maybe you want to talk a bit about that and where that's come from.
Sure, yeah. So the McLean Library is the news site for the Wayports community. Wayports is a virtual world for productivity, and so people log in, and there's companies that try to develop this community. So naturally, we're publishing news stories on the McLean Library. It's also a library space within the virtual world, and so we're now obviously we need a cryptocurrency effort so people can transact, and that is Quantum. Quantum is a system of decentralized finance vaults. So we're really soon we're going to be launching that. I would say 1 or 2 more weeks until that's ready. So naturally, we needed to add that team to the URL. And it plays well with Lilium, which is the cryptocurrency of Wayports. That's how it all connects.
Excellent stuff. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Wellington, if I might. One of the most improved drivers, along with Eduardo, actually, that we've seen progressing through the last few seasons. He had third place quite comfortably, but then a few mistakes from him. Can you comment on Wellington's progress in the series?
Yeah, sure. So Wellington, he's a developer for Wayports, and he's been completely new to sim racing, but he's really eager to learn. He has been learning English at the same time as he's been learning the basics of LFS. So that's really exciting, and that's I guess it's really rewarding for him. And so it started. He spoke little English. I mean, he came in and started working with us, and at the company we do have English classes. That is a benefit that you get for working with us. So he started with that, and then started asking questions about sim racing, and so now to see him here challenging for a podium is great. I'm really proud of him. But yeah, it's been a big change. He got it's like every one of us, I guess, little by little, he came to the decision to buy himself a wheel, and that's what you've seen. Now he has that pace; he can improve and start getting up there. Yeah. Great stuff.
Yeah, everybody needs to watch their backs, especially your teammate Valentina. It was close in the end between them two, and also Ian. Hopefully, we can chat to them in a minute. I'll keep you in the commentary box, Mariano, because it might be nice to if you have any thoughts. But yeah, I'm going to drag in Valentina just now. Valentina, P3. It looked a little bit sketchy out there, but ultimately, it's another podium for you.
Hey, how are you guys? Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm thrilled. Honestly, I think it's my first time scoring a few points for my team. Yeah, made a lot of mistakes though.
Yeah, a little bit quiet there. Not able to hear you to the full, but
Is it better now?
Oh,
okay,
brilliant. Yeah, yeah. My ears won't thank you for that one, but there we go. I can hear you now.
awesome.
It's okay. Yeah. So another podium. A good race. It looked as if you were going to have some challenge from Wellington, but he threw it in a wall, unfortunately. And yeah, P3.
Yeah, I was threatened by a couple. It seemed like first it was Ian, then it was Wellington. Well, at the very beginning it was Eduardo, then I think it was Ian, and then Wellington. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. I had a drive-through penalty. I also forgot to disable the car repair option, so I kind of freaked out in the middle of the race as well. So I had like really bad lap times, and I also had like really good lap times. So it was a crazy race for me.
Wow, good stuff. Yeah, that drive-through penalty certainly did not help your race, but it certainly helped your campaign with McLean Library. You and Mariano have will almost certainly.
I know, finally.
Yeah. Good stuff.
I know. Finally, I was able to score some points for the McLean Library. Certainly, I'm thrilled. So happy about that. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Also, I got my vaccine, my shot yesterday, so my arm was a bit weird. So yeah. So also, I wasn't expecting this podium, this B3. So that's a great surprise. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, some physiotherapy as well for you this race on that arm. So
Yeah.
benefits all round. You two going forward to Fern Bay for next round 6. How are you feeling about that? I know that you're both fans of the Fern Bay environment in Live for Speed.
Yeah, I am. I really like Fern Bay. I think it's one of my favorite tracks. So yeah, looking forward to it definitely. I hope I hope I make less mistakes on this one. Absolutely.
Hopefully. Thoughts from you there, Mariano, for Fern Bay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just getting the message that Andy did take his wheel, and I can't believe that win now tastes a lot better all of a sudden.
Did he
That's
take
great.
his wheel?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he took
he's
his
racing with.
heard that from him.
Mental.
That's nuts. So yeah, that's a great thing going up into the next track, and yeah, a lot of more space for mistakes, I guess, in there if you want to be fast, if you want to push. It often comes with big risks, so it's going to be a lot more action in there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for your interviews. I'm going to have a word with Ian now, but we'll see you both next week.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to chat now to Ian. Ian for Lilium. Ian, can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
How are you doing? So, P4 today.
Yeah.
We noticed a little bit of trouble at the front end of your car. Actually, the steering input is it's hurting you a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, so I had some technical issues during the qualifying session with my wheel, and it forced me to play with the gamepad. So I was not prepared for that. I didn't do any kind of any lap with the gamepad, so I just had to plug it in real quick to not miss the qualifying session. Like, I guess I noticed the problem halfway through. So, but yeah, I ended up being 1 to 2 seconds slower with the gamepad, and that's too bad because we missed Santiago today. But at the end of the day, I finished up in the P4, which is where I've been consistently finishing the races in.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, considering you had a technical issue with that controller, then actually P4 is a pretty good result, you have to say. With Santiago missing, potentially a missed opportunity. So hopefully you can get that sorted for Fern Bay. Fern Bay, do you enjoy that track?
Yeah, actually, I enjoy it. It's not my favorite one because my favorite one is probably Kyoto Ring. But yeah, I enjoy playing there for sure.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for the interview, Ian. I hope we can see you next week with hopefully the right controller configuration.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, thank you very much again, and see you next time.
See ya.
Ian there for Lilium. Travis, let's have your final thoughts again, please. After those interviews, maybe now that we've got confirmation that Andy was using his wheel, that's got to feel good for Mariano going forward.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. As Mariano said, it's a more impressive victory, and he should feel bitter about it. Knowing after the fact that he had stronger competition than he realized. Also, fair play to Andy. That's commitment to haul his wheel with him when he's traveling to make that race. So, that said, we speculated whether he would be happy or disappointed with that performance. He might be a little more disappointed knowing that he had the best equipment, but. If you set up in an unfamiliar place or, you don't have everything adjusted the way you want, which is difficult to do when you don't have all of your own equipment, wheel or otherwise, he should be pretty happy with that. Little preparation, unfamiliar location. I think he did a pretty good job today and certainly surprised his competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all of those sentiments. Please join us next week for round 6 of the championship at I have here West Hill National, not Fernbay. I will. Well, hopefully that is. That is my mistake. So West Hill National reversed on September the 4th at 1 o'clock UTC for qualifying. We'll be back here at 10 to 2 UTC for our coverage of Wayports Racing League Season 3. We hope to see you all then. Thank you, Travis. I've been Peter Butcher. See you next time.